Hello, welcome to the Future of Dermatology podcast. Today we have a very interesting topic to talk about, and I'm so glad to have our guest with us, Dr. Maria Buth, who is an MD, PhD, Pediatric Dermatology Fellow at Rady Children's Hospital, UCSD. It's so great to have you here, Maria.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah, and what we were going to discuss is actually something a little bit different, but extremely important. And I'll just put a little bit of background. So last year in August, we had our San Francisco Derm Society big eczema symposium, large meeting in Napa, which was really fun. I think we all had a great time. And then one of the things that we did at the conference was introduce a kids club, which basically meant a place for the children of the attendees to go to we limited to ages 3 to 12. And then we had specialized licensed teachers in there with different activities and all these fun things. So the kids, mostly from the Saturday, they were there in the morning doing all sorts of fun stuff. In the afternoon, I think about 2 or 3, went back to their parents, rested a bit. And then we went back to the kids club, like I think 6 to 10, I want to say. And then that was during when we had our gala. So the parents got to party. The kids had like a movie night. The fun thing in the morning was very much whoever registered came. It was very controlled. In the evening portion, it was funny because the teachers were telling me, they're like, bunch of kids are showing up. So I think other parents who maybe didn't know about the kids club were like, there's a kids club. And then so like the movie night was just like packed. And I think it even extended younger than 3 and past 12. And I think the kids had an amazing time. So then me and Maria were talking about it, and I'll let you kind of take away too, Maria, about your thoughts and your comments of it. But we've been talking more and more about it after the event, and how important these things are at educational conferences. So I won't talk too much. I'll pass it on to you. I'd love to kind of hear your initial thoughts when you came to the conference and when we kind of talked about this concept.
Thank you very much. I was absolutely amazed by this initiative. I think it's so important and unique to attract more and more young physicians and making available to attend conferences and really being exposure to all the normal treatments and everything that is ultimately going to improve patient care. I personally have 2 young children, and I was lucky enough to have a support system at home where I could still attend the conference. But my 2 co-fellows, they were not in a similar situation, so they were not able to, being exposed as I did to everything that is going on in our in dermatology, and then to really internalize this new information and learn. So I really applaud you for that initiative, and I really wish that more conferences will follow the example that you set, because again, there is probably none more receptive to novel treatment and new ways to improve patient care than young physicians, who will be the one that usually will have younger kids and that will benefit the most from those initiatives.
And I have to thank you, actually, because this was sort of where we're like, let's give it a try and see how it goes. And with anything new, you're not quite sure how it's going to go. So there's a little bit of anxiety before any new initiative of how it actually develops. Couple of things I was really, really excited about were literally you coming up to me, a few of our other kind of colleagues coming up to me saying exactly that. It was so great to kind of hear validation of what our group thought was going on, which is the younger group who are parents are not getting out to as many of these events, which are crucial in your early career development, whether you're a resident or just early young physician. When your kids are just the youngest, you're just basically in it with the kids. It's so intensely hardcore, the childcare aspect, that you just don't make it out. You do your main job, and that's probably hard enough. And it's so hard to get to these live events where the information is, the ever-changing information is presented, but also all the networking happens. So in a way, the years of that you're out and you should be developing everything, there is this huge giant hurdle, this challenge that I don't think we've been addressing for years. So I just, it felt so great that others and you and others can said that same sentiment of like, yes, this is a real phenomenon. It's not in your head. Said that that is a barrier.
And also something else that I was very impressed with this initiative was the quality of the kids club. Um, and like that was not just a place where like you can just like drop off your children and do your like go and do your networking, but that was actually a way that would promote bonding between the children, but also like very intellectually stimulating activities with science experiments. And I mean, that's something that I would have wanted to participate when I was a kid, probably. Uh, and and then it also promoted the bonding among parents. So it was just such a good idea, and there's so many aspects. And I think that we have a duty to really like put the word out there, and really raising awareness of how impactful this can be.
That's so great to hear. And yeah, that actually raised the second point too. Like, I was just so happy that everybody thought it went well and they felt comfortable that their kids were there. I also have 3 little ones, so I kind of have a little bit in that psychology of knowing when you feel comfortable where you're leaving your children and when you're not. And plenty of situations have happened where you show up to something and it's called childcare and you're kind of like, okay, maybe I'll go do what I have to do for 10 minutes, but I'm coming right back and picking them up. That does not look like a good place to stay. And I don't even necessarily mean safety wise, just kind of in the sense of, are they going to be bored? Are they going to be entertained? So that was one of the things that was really important to us. And also the 3 teachers that were there are all credentialed teachers. Not just, people you kind of just hire to just watch children, but they really are credentialed, meaning they can help with academics and developing programs. One of them was specifically a special ed teacher as well, because it was also important to us to have an inclusive setting. I did have one parent who reached out and said, hey, I kind of want to, come, but I'm a little worried about I think one of their younger sons. They said, he has a few things going on. He's a little rambunctious, usually in these settings where he doesn't know people, doesn't do great. So maybe we shouldn't. And I kind of gave the feedback of, we do have one person who does this every day. They're, a special education teacher. So give it a try. Leave your phone number if things aren't working out. And I think, that family told me afterwards that that teacher just did so well with their son just because he knew what to do. It wasn't just a person who's like never dealt with, a child's tantrum or, different things. So the staff were really qualified. That was an important point. The second thing, like you mentioned, we really wanted activities for them. So we had like a derm path section. There was like microscopes and they were looking at, it was just things like bugs and things like kids would care about. We asked all the kids what they liked beforehand and kind of made sure there was some activity that each kid could kind of relate to. And then the nighttime one was just like a giant party. I think they just had fun. There was candy and party favors and they were just like, and then the Sunday, kids woke up the next day and they're like, do we go back to kids clubs? I'm like, okay, that's a good sign. That's a good
sign,
review.
yes.
That's always a good sign. And then you're right. The one thing I really didn't think about was the kids in there actually meeting each other and making friends. I mean, of course, when you put a bunch of kids together, that could happen, but I didn't really even think about that, right? So the kids just like really became friends. They knew each other. And I was like, how cool is that? Because we're kind of similar cohorts, especially geographically, that go to these geographic conferences. What if the kids get to know each other every year? And then like every year they're, growing up together and they become lifelong friends. There's things you don't even think about implications of doing these things. But, we're all kind of a group and colleagues. Why shouldn't our kids kind of get to know each other as well?
So one of the other aspects that we briefly touched base, and in order to make it more sustainable for the future, not just for this conference, but for any other conference, was to really go and look into the cost and see how that will compare, like compared to the other costs associated with conferences, and finding ways to make it more sustainable. And from what we like truly discussed after analyzing all the data, that was not a substantial amount of the budget. I don't know if you want to maybe comment more about that. I think that's really important.
That was such an important point that you brought up. I think afterwards we basically talked about what a great thing it was, and then you were just so analytical with coming up with the different ways of looking at it, which was amazing. So one of the things you helped me kind of take a peek at was, yeah, like let's take a look at how much it cost in total, how much was the whole conference. I think I forget exactly the percentage, but I think it was less than like 1%. Like it was basically what we came up with was pretty much compared to every other thing, it was like a negligible cost, like maybe even less than, the coffee station plus the cookie, that kind of thing. It wasn't like a um, make or break type of budget, but yet it made such a huge impact. So if you kind of look at, and then the other thing we thought about for this conference, we didn't charge the parents and we didn't, get specifically sponsorship for the kids club, but I'm guessing in the future, it's absolutely an avenue where it could be another place where a conference could have a place for sponsorship. And I think whatever the sponsorship amount ends up being, I'm sure will more than cover for the actual kids club. So if a conference is being run like a business, SF Derm is really different. We're very kind of educationally based, but let's say one is built around a business, I'm sure would actually probably even make more than the cost. So that was a really good point in that it's not cost prohibitive.
Mm-hmm. And if you think about the exposure that um, that even like conference sponsors will get from, again, young physicians that would otherwise not be able to receive that exposure, I think that that's also priceless in a way. Because, for example, those are also probably the same physicians that may not be able to attend um, dinners, or that again may have other limited opportunities to be presented with new data on novel treatment for the patients.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. It's like the same group who was like out in hiding, just taking care of their children. So they're just like the conferences. There's probably dinners and things like that they're just probably not getting to as much. So access to this group is actually valuable because otherwise we can't find them. They finish clinic and they run off to pick up their kids. So it was really kind of cool going through all of the different factors. Another thing we talked about is, of course, this is, if you look at it in a simplicity, it's okay, it's a kids club, it's a place where your kids go. But when we look at, issues of not only, women, I would say men and women, all parents, but somewhat we know that childcare can be a little bit skewed towards women. So when you look at inclusivity and having women, get higher in their positions, get kind of higher up roles within academics, things like that. If you really look at it structurally, there are all the huge kind of things everybody looks at pay differences and legislation to protect women. And they're like these big problems that people tackle. I think in a cool way, going the other way and just tackling these little problems will have snowball effects. So in theory, and I don't know the data, but I presume that we could probably, if we looked it up, you could probably see that maybe a young female physician might not make it to as many conferences, maybe in the first few years, or maybe for 5 to 10 years of when they have kids. That's also the years where you're the youngest and kind of making your career. So if you're not going to these conferences, you're not networking, you're not writing the papers, you're not getting the right contracts, then that snowballs into you probably won't get that next promotion, and so on and so on. So it's almost like I don't, not that these little initiatives are going to fix everything, but to me, I think there's a step in the right direction. It's sort of just, let's allow you
Absolutely.
to be in the rooms where things happen.
Yes. And not just that, I can give you like a very practical example. For example, for just to attend the conference, if it's a local conference, I may think about even like bringing my young child. But if I have to speak at the same conference, then becomes even more of a problem. So if I'm by myself and I also have to think about, who do I leave my child with, for me to have those like 10, 20 minutes on the podium. So that also affects like young women, young physicians accepting like leadership roles, and just piggybacking on what you were saying before. And so they may pass on like speakers opportunities, or just even like presenting their data um, to a larger group.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like literally just even something as simple as just showing up to like a 30-minute talk. If you don't have the proper childcare, it doesn't really happen. And then the other pieces of it, you could also say, well, you could just get a babysitter. Why don't you kind of get a babysitter? But I think there's a little bit of the psychology of the mom guilt or the parent guilt that happens. Let's say you're going away for an entire weekend and you have lots of babysitters, but maybe you're leaving your spouse behind. And then there's a guilt of, well, how many times can you do that per year? And there are these other factors that kind of come into the decision making. It's not always like super clear. Well, if childcare issues, get a babysitter, but it's a little bit more complicated, I think.
Absolutely. And then, like, if you just think about the cost perspective, if looking at how many attendees will hire a local babysitter, and then considering how much study would be to get a couple of like, or a certain number of like teachers to handle like a much like wider number of children, that is just from the cost point of view, it's a no-brainer for me, especially when you compare it to other costs associated to running a conference. And so what I would hope for in the future is maybe sponsors will consider this as a very interesting, innovative way, again, to promote exposures for young physicians, especially considering the cost is really minimal.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. We could actually prove that hypothesis. So our next SFDR meeting this upcoming summer, we should look around and just see, can we find a sponsor for the kids club, and how much value is there out there in society and within like the medical field of sponsoring something like that. It would just be kind of interesting, the responses we get and the kind of feedback we have. If we have any follow up, we'll do another session and
Yes.
talk about that.
So
But
stay tuned.
Just by stay tuned for that. We'll do a little experiment and find out. The other piece of it is actually, I think it's already, even since we've talked to other people about it, it's already kind of starting to make some change. Like our CalDerm members reached out to SFDerm, and they have a meeting in May. They asked how we did it. I think they're going to put on a kids club. And I've had another group even reach out to us. So it's locally, I think the word is spreading, which is really, really cool. So hopefully we can get it more out there as well. There's been, I think we talked about this too, there's traditionally been conferences that tried to be more family friendly, like they were maybe in cool areas where people wanted to go. And so like even my coworkers, when I started to have kids, they were like, oh, go to this conference because you can take your kids and it's really fun. But what I found when my kids were even younger, when I took them to these things, it kind of just meant we went to that place together and I hung out with my kids. And maybe I went for 5 minutes to the conference. Because if you don't have a game plan for them, you just feel bad leaving them all day, leaving them with your spouse. So even kind of family-friendly places, I think you definitely just still need a place for your kids to be at the conference while you're really paying attention, you're presenting. So,
and again, what was unique about the Kids Club was the quality of the entertainment. I mean, they actually did their path. Like, how cool is that?
Right? We had the microscopes. We had they were teaching them all the little skills. Maybe next year we start showing them like early surgical skills. We'll see how that goes.
Hey, it's never too early.
Never too early to start. But yeah, it was a really great event. And then I think we'll just kind of follow over time and see kind of how it goes. But just doing the event, us telling all our colleagues was a great first step. This podcast is another great step. We're going to have publications coming around about this. That'll be another great step. So we're just here to disseminate the information to kind of remove these little barriers. And Maria, anything else you wanted to add, or even outside the Kids Club, anything you wanted to share about what you guys are doing at the Rady Children's Hospital, anything at all?
I mean, I think that there is just so much room for having this initiative to grow. And actually, to all the wonderful listener, if you agree with this initiative, maybe you can uh, send us a comment or uh, your thoughts, and maybe we can come up with a kind of a petition, and then like by showing the numbers of people that would actually be interested in this initiative if it was presented to the conference that they are planning to attend. Maybe that could be a way to uh, again promote the initiative itself and possibly convincing and making the case uh, for sponsors to promote this initiative, because cost is also a factor in all of these. There are some conferences that kind of like have part-time childcare, but the cost is on to the young physician. So that's also something to uh, get in consideration when budgeting attending the conference or not. Um, so I don't know, so much room to grow around this. But if you believe that this can be a good idea, like please let us know.
Yeah, definitely. Please let us know. That's definitely great just to get the community around the idea. And then Maria says this is the Future of Dermatology podcast. We end every session with asking our guests if there's anything you see in the future of dermatology, anything you're excited about, anything you think is going to be different in the future, anything at all. It could be a comment on anything that you see for the
I'm
future
really
of
excited
dermatology.
about targeted therapies. Yes, I'm really excited about all the new targeted therapies that are coming like every day, available for our patients and for once untreatable diseases. So like always learning, like and making sure to be up to date on the new developments. I think it's crucial because it's really revolutionizing medicine.
That's a really good point too. Yeah, there's so many therapies coming out that I think it's one of the best times to be practicing dermatology, but then probably even one of the most important times to be super on top of it. Because if you kind of like blink and don't read things for 3 to 6 months, there's probably like 10 therapies that came out that you don't know
Absolutely.
about. So
Yes.
it's different than before where you could probably go to a once a year event and you were good. I think you just now it's actually the atmosphere has changed a bit too. So that's actually another really great point. In general, technology is just changing by the minute. So you sort of have to be out and getting the most latest information. Sounds good. Well,
Exactly.
thank you so much for joining. Thank you for all of your support of this initiative
Thank you
and
for
all the
inviting
work you've
me.
done around it. You've built some amazing surveys. And as we get more information about next year, if we get a bunch of sponsors that are interested, we'll do another session as a follow up of how the project is going.